Do you find the supplement world to be a bit confusing and daunting? Well, you're not alone. That's why I'm excited to be speaking with Dr. Talal Sharaiha today to help us navigate this world. We'll be discussing ways in which to assess supplement quality, how to understand certain product labels, what the common deficiencies are and how to start supplementing, as well as why supplementing is important in this day and age. Dr. Sharaiha is an internal medicine doctor, which is a medical specialty that focuses on the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of adult diseases. He's a graduate of the University of London Medical School and is now a fellow at the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine, doing a deep dive on supplements and how to vet the various brands on the market. He is an inventor of medical devices and a founder of a medical device company called AspiSafe Solutions, Inc. He has been granted 4 patents for his inventions and has been involved in the medical product manufacturing space for 10 years. Medical manufacturing, whether supplements, pharmaceuticals, or devices, have to adhere to certain quality standards, where companies follow protocols set forth by their quality management system. Dr. Sharaiha lived this experience with his medical products, which has now given him excellent experience in vetting the quality of supplement manufacturers on the market. Hi, Talal. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm great, Alia, and I'm glad we're getting to do this.
Yeah, me too. This is a really important subject. I get a lot of questions about supplements from both clients, family members, and friends. So I'm really happy to have you here so we can help everyone just navigate this sometimes confusing and overwhelming space. So thank you. I guess the first question for you is, do we really need supplements and why?
Well, Alia, honestly, I totally swung to the other side of the pendulum on this. I used to think that we should be able to get everything from our nutrition, but I completely reversed that thought. And really, it's because our nutrition, as I'm sure you know, is more and more manufactured these days. Our soil is getting more and more depleted. We're exposed to environmental toxicants every day. We're susceptible to genetic mutations. We are certainly susceptible to disease. Our body has its own set of defenses to fight disease, but having some supplements on board actually sometimes helps when it's needed.
I'm like you as well, that I feel that food can be medicine and can be what heals us. But so similarly to you, I also am very aware that our soils are now more devoid of nutrients. We're more stressed. We're living in a very fast paced world. We are exposed to toxins. And I've read that being exposed to this much toxins and being this stress also reduces or robs our body of the nutrient stores that we are meant to be having. When we talk about supplements, it sounds like this is meant to be supplemental anyway. This is not meant to replace good nutrition and good lifestyle and stress management, etc. However, it sounds like because we're more stressed, because of the lifestyle that we lead in this modern world, and because our soils are devoid of nutrients, we need that added support, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. I mean, we can use supplements with a lot of different aspects of our health. And part of it is to maintain our health, part of it is to fight disease, and part of it these days is to improve longevity.
A lot of people have this question around if supplements are safe, if they're regulated. Many people seem to think that they're not. Could you maybe just speak to us about that and the history of the FDA and its involvement in regulating supplements?
Yeah, let's nip this in the bud. Supplements are certainly regulated. The big law that was passed in 1994 in the US. Before that, there was a big movement to ban supplements. Supplements were very tightly regulated, and you could only sell a vitamin, a mineral, and a protein, and that's the only thing that constituted as supplements. There was a big outcry from the public. Apparently, Congress received more letters about supplement law than they did for the Vietnam War. In the early 1990s, the manufacturers convened, spearheaded by a guy called Jerry Kessler, and they decided to lobby hard to get this law passed and to sort of improve the repertoire of what constitutes a supplement. So, on the front end, when the law was passed in 1994, it was a Dietary Health Supplement and Education Act. On the front end, they were saying now the FDA can crack down on fraudulent supplements and mislabeled supplements. But really, on the back end, they placed the onus on the FDA to do the diligence in case there was any fraudulent activity. So let's compare it to the pharmaceutical world, where you have to demonstrate safety, you have to demonstrate efficacy, and then you have to apply to the FDA to market the drug. Whereas in the supplement world, you put the drug on the market, you label it, and you have certain claims. And then if the FDA has suspicions of any fraudulent activities, they have to do the diligence work to prove that.
So that's for the United States, but what about the rest of the world?
So yeah, I mean, the bulk of my knowledge is in the US because I live here, but certainly there's even tighter regulations in the EU because in the EU, they're not as influenced by the lobbying that there is in the US. So, I mean, I would certainly follow EU regulations above the FDA regulations here.
So, would you argue that we can trust supplements? Because there is a lot of not literature, but popular science bloggers or health coaches like me, talking about how we have to really take care of the supplements we buy, and supplements are not typically FDA approved, or what's in them is not exactly vetted for. So, can you just help us understand that a little bit better? Are there maybe some brands that are regulated and some are not? Because this is kind of common information for the everyday person, is like, don't really trust every supplement that comes out.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are brands that are better than others for sure. All brands have to follow the regulation set forth by the FDA or the EU. And the biggest part of this regulation is what we call the CGMP, so Good Manufacturing Practice. So all of these brands have to manufacture a supplement bearing in mind the quality, the consistency, the purity, the potency, and the safety. So these are the five sort of cornerstones of a good supplement. So I mean, we could go through them. Safety, so the supplement manufacturer has to have some sort of an adverse event reporting. In case anything happens when the supplement is in the market, the FDA has to be aware of the adverse event, and it has to be traceable to figure out which lot or batch that was causing this adverse event. Purity, the supplement should be devoid of heavy metals. It should be devoid of bacteria and adulterants. Potency, if you're saying you're selling 500 milligrams of vitamin C, it better be 500 milligrams of vitamin C. Ultimately, a good manufacturer would manufacture a quality supplement consistently. So that's sort of the key element of it. And the way they do that is that they have to have certain processes and procedures in place where if anyone comes on board as an employee of this manufacturing facility, they are able to manufacture this quality with that same consistency. So that's the backbone of a good supplement brand. So when that law was passed in 1994, the manufacturers, they have to follow these policies and procedures, but the raw material manufacturers don't have to comply. So this becomes a bit of an issue. So the manufacturer themselves, they have to vet where they're getting these raw. I mean, the most important part of the supplement is the raw materials. If you don't know where you're getting your raw materials from, that's going to be an issue. So a good manufacturer would be able to test every single batch that comes through of the raw materials. They would buy raw materials from reputable sources. And there's different types of testing that you could do for the raw materials. You know, a mediocre manufacturer would do some sort of spectroscopy testing, whereas a better manufacturer may even do DNA testing. They may do something we call like high performance liquid chromatography testing. And this is to ensure that every raw material coming in is exactly what the manufacturer wanted. The manufacturer should also audit these suppliers at least once a year. You go into these suppliers' facilities and you say, hey, show me how you're getting this turmeric. Show me how you're sending me these elderberries or whatever. So it's a laborious process to be a good, reputable manufacturer.
The thing is, sometimes heavy metals do come into our supplements. So, what's happening there?
So I mean, heavy metals you can get from the soil. You could get from it's sort of naturally occurring in certain parts. I think the part of heavy metals is somewhat inevitable to find some traces, but where you want to focus the attention on is, are you testing for the heavy metals? Are you testing for the concentrations of mercury or lead or arsenic in these supplements? And you know, a good supplement manufacturer would be doing those testings on the raw materials and on the finished products before they put it onto the market. So Yes, you have to find these good brands and you have to stick with them.
So, as an everyday consumer, how do we know the difference between a good brand and a brand that's not doing the quality control or the third party testing?
Okay, so there's different levels of how much diligence you'd want to be doing, but certainly look at their website, call them, say, I would like to speak to your quality department. I mean, that's the first thing. If they don't have a quality department, you just hang up and move on to another brand. But so certain things to look for the layperson, you want to make sure that these manufacturers are third party audited. So some of the labels that you want to look for on the supplement is NSF or USP, and these are basically non-profit organizations that would do auditing on these manufacturers and probably at least once or twice a year to vet their manufacturing processes and to vet what they're manufacturing is in fact what's on the label. So NSF stands for the National Sanitation Foundation, but most people don't, just know it by NSF, and USP is United States Pharmacopoeia. So USP has a verification program that supplements can enroll into. And, if they get that USP stamp, to me, that's a big statement that they're manufacturing a substance of quality. You may not have these two. You could go onto their website and see if these supplements have been audited by a third-party entity.
Okay, so once somebody has done a bit of research and understands the brand a bit better or the different brands a bit better, where does a consumer start? If I'm interested in supporting my health, I understand that my food is not as nutritious as the way that my ancestors ate. My body is maybe a little bit more depleted of the nutrition stores that typically I would be able to hold on to if I wasn't as stressed or living in this modern world. So I'm just kind of understanding that my body needs that extra support. Where do I start? How do I begin navigating this world?
It's a little bit tricky because a lot of the doctors out there are not well versed in the supplement world. So if you don't have any symptoms and you're looking to improve your health or maintain your health status, certainly go to your physician, whether it's a primary care or an internist, and get a checkup. Get a set of labs, get a history, get a physical, and based on what the doctor could tell you, if there's any health issues, then you may need to find perhaps a functional practitioner. They may be able to recommend some supplements if you have chronic symptoms or chronic diseases and you'd like to revert to the world of supplements for treatment. I would look for an integrative medicine practitioner who would be able to provide you a good set of supplements instead of pharmaceuticals or instead of other conventional ways of treating these symptoms or diseases. So you just have to find them. I mean, it's becoming a bigger and bigger movement, at least, because the consumers do want it. Patients are asking for supplements, and the doctors are now playing catch up.
So I guess our advice is for the everyday person, get your bloods done. Whether it's, going to your conventional doctor or if you want something a little bit more comprehensive, going to a functional practitioner and just getting a sense, getting some insight on where your body is, where your deficiencies are. So just for, people listening, so the two most common deficiencies are magnesium and vitamin D. And even if you live in a hot country like in the Middle East or the GCC, most people in the GCC are vitamin D deficient. This is something you definitely would want to test for because you can take too much. You can supplement to the point where you are taking to a level that's unsafe for your body, to toxic levels. But for most people, magnesium is something that is super safe. And you would know if you're taking too much, you would have loose stools. And magnesium is responsible for more than 300 different systems in your body. It's not just for muscle cramps, but it's also for hormone regulation and function, for the thyroid, for brain function, for gut, for blood sugar management. It is so important. We call it a macro mineral. And we're all pretty much like, I think the stats are like 80 or 90% of us are magnesium deficient. So it's definitely something to probably safely start with. And vitamin D. And then I think the other two big ones are zinc and iron. So you can talk to your practitioner about those four and just see where you're at. But if you'd like to just maybe safely start with something, it could be maybe magnesium. Would you agree?
Yeah, I certainly agree with you. I think more than 80% of the people do not get their recommended dietary allowance of magnesium through their nutrition. And that's because our soils are certainly depleted of magnesium these days. I think the recommended dietary allowance is probably around 300, 400 milligrams. I think most magnesium supplements out there are about the same, 350, 400 milligrams. And magnesium is not the sort of supplement where you can take too much. I wouldn't worry about people taking too much. To figure out magnesium deficiency is not easy. I mean, you could test a blood test to figure out your magnesium levels, but you should know that maybe more than 90% of your magnesium is intracellular, so it's inside the cells. 60% of your magnesium in your body is in your bones. So when you do a blood test, if the levels are really low, it may be an indication. Probably a better way of deciphering magnesium deficiency is a urinary magnesium level. Or what you could do if you want to go all out is you could give a loading dose of magnesium, and then you test for the urinary concentrations of magnesium. And if they don't go up, then it means your body is holding on to all that magnesium that you're giving. So it means you're deficient. So deficiency is hard to sort of decipher with magnesium, but also optimal levels are not really known. If you know you're not getting magnesium from your nutrition, I would certainly supplement with magnesium 300 to 400 milligrams every day. And as you said, it helps with every single part of your body. It's a great supplement. I would wholeheartedly recommend to have magnesium in your supplement cabinet at home. Now, in terms of vitamin D deficiency is rampant. We should differentiate between vitamin D deficiency and what's the optimal level of vitamin D. I think there's no consensus on what the optimal level of vitamin D is. Vitamin D, let's clarify, vitamin D is not really a vitamin. It's more of like a pro-hormone. So it's an inactivated hormone, and it needs to undergo a process called hydroxylation. So you add an OH onto the chemical structure of the vitamin D, and that happens in the kidneys. And then you get the active form of vitamin D, which is what people hear about vitamin D3. So certainly if you're taking the vitamin D supplement, you don't want to take the vitamin D2 because you're just essentially taking a supplement that's going into storage. But you want to take the vitamin D3. And the reason why I say it's not a vitamin, because it acts more like a hormone. It's been implicated in good cardiovascular health. It's been implicated in reduction in certain cancers, great for bone health. It's something postmenopausal women should certainly be checking to prevent osteoporotic fractures. And it's good for that. It's certainly good for postmenopausal women to check their vitamin D levels to prevent osteoporotic fractures. So you could tell what a vitamin D deficiency is from the lab test. The lab test will tell you what's deficient and what's optimal. A lot of the endocrine society bodies, they would say 30 to 50 would be a good optimal level. I think anything above 80, you're taking too much. But that, it's not easy to get to 80 or 100 levels of vitamin D. So definitely get your vitamin D checked. My advice would certainly be different from one patient to the other.
And yeah, with vitamin D, as you were saying, we want to look for vitamin D3 as the active form, but also for everyone to know if you are going to choose a supplement and you're choosing on your own, not with the advice of a practitioner, you want vitamin D3 plus K2. And the K2 type, you want it to be in parentheses, usually written on the bottle, MK7. This is the most bioavailable form of vitamin D. And I know it sounds like a lot of numbers and a lot of letters, but I promise you a good vitamin D brand will have D3, K2, MK7. And if MK7 is not written on the front, you just turn it over and you'll see it at the back. If you want to start low and slow, you can start with 5,000 international units a couple times a week, maybe not every day. So 5,000 IUs until you get your bloods done. And that keeps you kind of on the low end. If you know that you're deficient or you're working with a practitioner, they might bring that up to 10,000, 15,000, maybe even 20,000. In some cases, if someone's severely deficient, they go up to 50,000 like once a month, which I personally don't like. I don't like to take that much as like a bomb to the system. I like to go slow and steady, like 5 or 10,000 a couple times a week. Again, you can stay in the safe zone and stay on the low range, but you do want to test because you don't want to get to toxic levels. And I talk to my clients, I mean, you were talking about cancer and cardiovascular disease, but I talk to my clients about PMS and hormonal issues and mood and gut health. I mean, vitamin D is going to touch, again, all these different symptoms. And if you're deficient or you're trying for pregnancy, then the whole body gets hit if you're deficient. So this is something to definitely look into and to not be complacent about, even if you do live in a sunny country.
So, I mean, physicians sometimes only prescribe 400 international units a day or 800 IUs a day or up to even 2000 a day. But yes, we do prescribe in patients who are severely deficient. As long as you're monitoring the levels, you should be okay. But we do prescribe 50,000 units a week for 4 weeks or for 8 weeks. And then we recheck levels to see if the vitamin D went up. And then if it's up to the optimum level, then you want to go back down to a maintenance supplement like what you said, 5,000 twice a week is great, or you go down to 800 or 2,000 a day, also good.
Also, just to talk about the range. So, when I see blood tests, again, I'm not a practitioner, so I can't advise my clients when it comes to blood tests, but sometimes I look at them with my clients and I advise them on how they can speak about certain things with their doctors. And in Kuwait, the range is like 75 to 200. And they'll come back with their vitamin D being 76 or 77. And of course, their doctor won't flag that because it's within range. But I'll tell my clients, if the range is 75 to 200, why do I want to be 76? I want to be like 150. But because
Yeah.
it's not flagged, the doctor doesn't talk to them about it. So this is something I'd also like to just leave everyone with is like when you get your bloods done, look at the range and make sure you're at that really nice middle optimal level, not too high, but not average low. I don't want to be on that low area either. I want to be kind of smack in the middle. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yes, so I think the unit of measure in Kuwait is different than what we have in the US, but a good lab will tell you the ranges. It will tell you a deficient range and an optimal range and a high range. So, yes, you want to target to be in the optimal range, and you certainly don't want to be deficient.
So, for people who now understand that we need to be offering our body some supplemental support, they're generally healthy, but they might be struggling with stress management or sleep or that busy lifestyle, or maybe not cooking for themselves every day and eating out sometimes and a little bit of brain fog. So, they're generally healthy, but they just want to like offer their bodies some additional support. There's no chronic disease. Where do you think they should start? What kind of supplements should they look into?
Yeah, so certainly, yeah, my top two would be vitamin D and magnesium. A good vitamin B complex is a great way because vitamin B is also utilized in a lot of your cellular reactions in the body, and it's good for lots of different systems. Omega-3 fatty acids, to me, also should be a staple. Now, especially some of your clients in the Middle East, if they're not having the seafood that they should be, if you're not having seafood twice a week, I would certainly supplement with omega-3 fatty acids. And omega-3 fatty acids have been implicated so many health systems. So they're definitely good for your cholesterol, good for your cardiovascular health. They're a strong anti-inflammatory, and there's a whole body of evidence now talking about mood and depression and inflammation as a culprit for that. So if you don't have fresh seafood, go for the canned sardines and anchovies and mackerels. But if you're not eating twice a week, I would go with 2 grams of omega-3 fatty acids. You can go higher, and some people do with patients with cardiovascular disease. But I think more than 50 years ago, there was a Dr. Sinclair, and he was studying the Inuit people in Greenland. And the Inuit people had such a low cardiovascular morbidity and mortality, and he wanted to understand why. For 100 days, he went onto their diet, which was purely marine food and seal meat. So he was eating the meat of the seal, and then he was testing his bleeding time. And what he was able to show, his bleeding time went from 3 minutes, and after 100 days went to more than 100 minutes. So it took more than 100 minutes for his blood to clot. And this just shows you how strong omega-3 fatty acids could be for cardiovascular health.
And I guess for overall health, right? So I talk to my clients, especially women who are of reproductive age, to really consider omega-3, whether you want children or not, whether you've had your kids or not. It is just so important if you're still a woman of reproductive age to have adequate amount of omega-3 in your diet. Also, just for PMS symptoms, for hormonal functioning again, and to manage stress. And stress is not just like deadlines at work. Stress can be environmental toxins, it can be rumination, it can be not getting enough sleep. It can be not liking yourself. It can be overthinking. So, stress can come in many different forms. It can even be loneliness, depression. This is all stress on the body. And when we're stressed, our brains are also stressed. And what happens is our brains are literally bathing in omega-3 fatty acids. So, we deplete those sources, correct? And so, we want to be replenishing our omega-3 fatty acids in the body by supplementing. And so, this is not just for women of reproductive age, also women who are perimenopausal, so getting into menopause and post, but also men. And as you said, it's anti-inflammatory. So I talk about this for gut health. And if your gut's good, your brain and mind are good too. So omega-3 is not something to look past. Definitely, if I were to start building my cabinet, my supplement cabinet, I would be looking at omega-3.
Yes, I think women of reproductive age, it's so important. So, we talk about omega-3 fatty acids. There's the three types. There's the DHA, the EPA, and the ALA. And the DHA, what's great for brain health. And you mentioned brain fog. So omega-3 fatty acids, especially the ones with a high DHA, they have helped with people with long COVID and brain fog. It can improve focus. It can elevate the mood. The EPA component can elevate the mood. And it's certainly good for fertility, and it's good for newborn babies. Prenatal women who are supplementing with a multivitamin, they really need to look at that and the DHA level in that multivitamin.
You also mentioned B complex, which is another multivitamin, I guess, that I like, especially for women during their luteal phase, which is the 10 days before the cycle. It can help with, again, PMS symptoms. It can help with energy. And I also know women who are now postmenopausal who take B complex, again, for energy and nervous system health. So I think that's a great one to have in the cabinet. I always have one in my cabinet. I don't take it every day. But it's just something that is always good to have on hand. Another favorite of mine is vitamin C. I know you recommend it for immune function or to just fight off the common cold. I love it also just as an antioxidant and for skin health and to boost collagen and collagen bioavailability or absorption by the body, I should say. There's a lot of I guess, discrepancy about vitamin C because the most kind of shelf stable commercial form is ascorbic acid. But I've learned that that's coming from processed corn. A lot of the time, ascorbic acid is coming from China where they're processing corn and they're deriving ascorbic acid from corn, which maybe not all vitamin C, but some are being derived this way. And so I tend to use more natural forms of vitamin C, like camu camu berry, which is super potent. Of course, citrus fruits, elderberry, and then again from my food. There are many practitioners out there who say ascorbic acid is just fine, and there are many who say no, stick to the natural. I'm just more from the natural kind of school of thought and school of practice. What do you think about having vitamin C kind of regularly in someone's regimen?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Vitamin C is a great antioxidant, and it's great for overall health. And I've seen a lot of patients take it, and some patients swear by it. So absolutely, it's good to know about the corn and vitamin C coming from that. I did not know this, so I would certainly go for the more natural version of vitamin C. If it's coming from plants, then we did discuss this before, you and I. Definitely go for the organic. Do not go for, especially if you're talking about things derived from soy or corn. These plants are riddled with pesticides and herbicides, and you really want to get organic as much as you can.
But now let's get a little specific. Let's talk about certain supplements we can recommend to people. Again, recommending, we say that loosely, you do need to be talking to your practitioner, but maybe recommend for you to research on or to read up on for someone who's dealing with insulin resistance or who are diabetic or pre-diabetic or dealing with blood sugar issues.
Okay, I mean, there's a slew of supplements that I can talk about for diabetes, but we'll focus on two or three. And the number one that comes to mind is berberine. Berberine is an alkaloid. It is, some people refer to it as a poor man's metformin. I mean, it's probably as good as metformin to lower your blood sugars. Berberine, it's great. It's a great hypoglycemic agent. It actually touches well on cholesterol. It can reduce your LDLs. It can also maybe have a modest benefit on blood pressure support. So berberine would be top of my list for anyone with insulin resistance or diabetes. Berberine also has the GLP-1, the enzyme in the Ozempic, and the other drugs of that sort. They're not going to give you that much weight loss, but it's good to know. Metformin, some people tend to lose weight, and I could see the same happening with berberine. Some other ones, believe it or not, aloe vera is a great hypoglycemic agent. I've seen some practitioners use it to lower down that hemoglobin A1C, to lower down that fasting blood sugar. And aloe vera, I mean, you use it for all sorts of things as a juice or even as a cream for skin. The other one, believe it or not, is cinnamon. Cinnamon is a great hypoglycemic agent. And cinnamon, so there's two different types, from a nutritional standpoint, there's two different types of cinnamon. There's a cinnamon Ceylon, which is what we refer to as a true cinnamon. The name comes from the historic name for Sri Lanka, where cinnamon comes from. But most of the studies on cinnamon and insulin resistance and diabetes were done on the false or the bastard cinnamon, which is called cinnamon cassia. So you may see those on the brands. Now for cooking, I would definitely go for the true cinnamon because it's got a smoother taste and it doesn't have that edgy taste that cinnamon cassia has. Cinnamon supplements. So about maybe half a teaspoon would be about a gram of cinnamon. I've seen studies talk about like 1 gram to up to 6 grams of cinnamon a day for diabetes, for lowering your sugars and improving your hemoglobin A1C.
I would also add chromium. Chromium is meant to also bring down your blood sugar. And I was given chromium when I was diagnosed with PCOS over 10, 12 years ago, as well as berberine. And berberine worked so well for me. It dropped my blood sugar so low that my doctor was like, get off of it now. So these are really efficient and very potent supplements that can really, really help. Another one, if you're kind of on the trends of the blood glucose management, Instagram kind of in that world, we're talking about apple cider vinegar, the organic with the mother. It is quite effective at lowering blood sugar after a meal. Now, I just want to caveat this by saying people are going crazy and having, like tablespoons and tablespoons of this every single day, 3 times a day before every single meal because they think they're going to lose weight and the calories from the meal won't count. Please, this is really, it's potent stuff. Please don't have apple cider vinegar like 3 times a day, every day for weeks and months on end. Just have it once a day before your biggest carbiest meal, and then don't have it every day. Take breaks. Have it like 2 or 3 times a week max. It's really good for gut health and inflammation as well, but it is quite effective at bringing down blood sugar. But just be mindful. You don't want to overdo a good thing. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, green tea, Camellia sinensis, has lots of polyphenols and has lots of compounds like the EGCG that has been shown to lower your sugar. Green tea is great. You can make a whole pitcher of green tea and keep the tea leaves in it. And the first batch of that pitcher would have all the caffeine, but keep it and then keep adding water into it, and you'll continue to get the polyphenols throughout the day if you're drinking that green tea. Yes, it's also been implicated to improve sugar. Magnesium, let's get back to that. Magnesium is great for diabetes. Fenugreek, also a phenomenal one. Turmeric is the king of the anti-inflammatory world, but it's been implicated in so many good things, and one of them is to reduce your sugars.
And of course, please consult your practitioner for dosages and before bringing it into your regimen, just in case there's any contraindications or if it's not suitable for you. Let's move on. What about cholesterol?
Cholesterol, yeah, that's a great one because you speak to all the cardiologists and they will tell you, oh, we should have statins in the water, and statins are great for patients who are at high risk of getting cardiovascular disease, or patients who did have heart attacks and you want to prevent the second one. The natural form of a statin is something called red yeast rice, and red yeast rice has the same chemical that you see in one of the statins called lovastatin. So red yeast rice can drop your LDL cholesterol significantly, and it's a great one if you don't want to go on a statin. Statins cause like myalgias and muscle issues. The red yeast rice can do that, but certainly not in the same intensity and frequency. So if you just don't want to be on a statin, that's a great alternative. Berberine, in addition to being like for diabetes, it is great at lowering your LDL cholesterol. The other one, especially if you can't take statins and if you're at a very high risk of cardiovascular disease, I would go with citrus bergamot. Citrus bergamot comes from the citrus fruit, comes from the southern Italy, and now we extract it, concentrate it, and give it to you in pills. And it's great. It can lower your LDL cholesterol by as much as 30-40%. So you do have alternatives. You don't have to go on the statin if you need to, especially to me, and this is a personal opinion, if you don't have cardiovascular disease, but you do have a strong family history and you don't want to go on a statin because the statins have been implicated in quite a few adverse events, I will profess statins are still a great drug. I would look at these alternatives. Now, if you want to drop your triglycerides, omega-3 fatty acids, fantastic. I would certainly go for omega-3 fatty acids to drop that triglyceride below 150. I think those are, the big three that I would recommend is the red yeast rice, berberine, and citrus bergamot.
What about blood pressure?
Blood pressure. I mean, so blood pressure, and it goes under the same umbrella of insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome diagnosis. Blood pressure, especially if you're a little bit on the high side, you have options. My personal favorite is CoQ10, coenzyme Q10. That it is a coenzyme that is found in lots of parts of your body, and it's sort of one of the powerhouses of your mitochondrial function, and it's especially more present in heart tissue than others. So coenzyme Q10 could drop your blood pressure by 10, 15 points. You could take it from a dose of 100 milligrams up to 400 milligrams, and it's great for general cardiovascular health. More maybe not on the supplement route. Beetroot juice is great. Beets release a lot of nitrous oxide, which vasodilates your arteries and reduces your blood pressure. You could get it as a form of a supplement or as a powder, add it to your smoothie. Dark chocolate has also been implicated in lowering blood pressure. Even omega-3 fatty acids, even the berberine have modest effects on blood pressure support. But my favorite would be the CoQ10.
What about for mental health support or people struggling with anxiety and depression?
That's a great one. Anxiety is so common these days, and I would certainly avoid any of the pharmaceuticals out there, like the benzodiazepines. My top choices would be ashwagandha, a great adaptogen for anxiety, and it also, especially if you're having sleep issues, ashwagandha is fantastic. The thing is with ashwagandha, the studies were done for about maybe a short term, 3, 4, 6 months. So people worry, and the recommendation is always when you take it for 3 months, maybe stop for a couple of weeks and then take it back again. The other one is lavender. Lavender is a phenomenal anti-anxiety agent. And you could take therapeutic doses of lavender that are not in the supplement market. So, some functional practitioners can prescribe it. I would fill my house with lavender candles, lavender scents if I had anxiety. Absolutely. Depression, my number one choice I wouldn't even go with pharmaceuticals. I would go with St. John's wort. It's a great antidepressive. Now with St. John's wort, you need to be careful. It interacts with other medications. So that one, I would consult your practitioner before you start taking it by yourself.
And as we spoke about before, anxiety, depression, these things are quite stressful in the body. So omega-3 will absolutely help your mental health. So, because it's going to help you manage stress. Some of my favorite anti-anxiety supplements are taurine. It's an amino acid that can help you still concentrate and function quite well, but calm the mind. And I also love L-theanine, which you can find in green tea and matcha. Same kind of thing where it doesn't make you sleepy, but it just calms the mind where you can still kind of function in your day, and it kind of reduces that anxiety. Another one that I really love is GABA. I think it's especially helpful if you're dealing with really heightened anxiety or panic attacks. I find it works quite well and quite instantaneously. Of course, you can increase GABA naturally with meditation, breath work, yoga. There's plenty of studies that show after a nice hour, 90 minutes of yoga, your GABA neurotransmitters in the brain and in the body increase. I also really like 5-HTP, which is the precursor for serotonin. And serotonin is your happy brain hormone. And it can be found naturally in like turkey and other meats and chocolate and things like this. But if you're someone that really struggles with depression, 5-HTP is something you can take just before bed, and it helps you sleep well. It helps modulate serotonin. Again, please talk to your doctors about this, but I find that 5-HTP can be quite powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about mental health. I mean, sleep is very important. GABA, L-theanine are great also for sleep. Situational anxiety, like acute episodes of anxiety that, let's say, what's going on in the world and things are happening to you for a short period of time. Kava is phenomenal to manage these sort of anxieties. Social anxieties, you're going to a party and you want to socialize and you want to take the edge off. Kava, you don't have to take that glass of wine. Go for kava. The other thing for sleep I would add is valerian and melatonin. Melatonin has been implicated in anti-cancer properties at higher doses. Valerian doesn't affect the quality of your sleep, and it does put you to sleep. So I would certainly look into valerian if you're having sleep issues.
What about women who are dealing with PCOS?
That's also a big issue. In the medical world, what we learned about metformin being great for PCOS, and that's how it started as a drug. So I would certainly recommend berberine because it helps with the blood sugar regulation and with the PCOS symptoms.
Yeah, so basically everything we discussed when it comes to regulating blood sugar and managing insulin resistance will be super helpful for women dealing with PCOS. And of course, do not forget about the diet and lifestyle interventions, like how you eat and how you manage your weight and building muscle and how you move in your day is super important for PCOS as it is for mental health. Okay, let's move on. Well, what about when it's cold and flu season? What are some of the supplements you have in your cabinet to help support someone's immune function?
So, what I would keep in my cabinet, especially now that the winter season is coming, my top would be zinc, elderberry, and vitamin C. And these are great antiviral supplements. So, zinc, most people would take a combination of zinc and vitamin C, and they say, yeah, I'm taking this, and then the zinc dose is way too low. If you're fighting a flu or a cold, I would go up to 75 milligrams to 100 milligrams of zinc for the 2 to 4 days that you're sick. Certainly don't keep taking that amount, but a high dose of zinc during illness will help reduce the duration of that illness. You got to watch out for side effects. Some people get nauseous with the zinc, so it can be tricky. Now, vitamin C, and there's a lot of debate whether is it effective or is it not. And some physicians or practitioners would say, oh, you don't need to take it because the evidence is not there. And I really have a firm opinion about this, is that the evidence out there should be a sliding scale with the amount of harm a drug or a supplement can give. So if you have something like vitamin C, a little bit of evidence to me goes a long way. But if it's not like we're talking about a chemotherapy drug where the harm risk is so high, then I want to see a good amount of evidence. There is a body of evidence that shows that vitamin C can kill viruses. In vitro, vitamin C will kill a virus. And high dose vitamin C does that. So your body probably gets saturated with about 200 to 250 milligrams of vitamin C. So you don't need that much on a daily basis. But when you do get sick, the absorption of vitamin C does increase. So that tells you something. And I personally, I've seen studies that would go up to 6 to 8 grams of vitamin C as soon as you get sick. And that's what I do. I would take 6 to 8 grams for the first 48 hours, and then I will go down. And a certain level of evidence showed that this reduces the duration of an illness. Same with elderberry as well. Some people think they're taking the right dose of elderberry, but if you really would like to look at the data, you need to take 1900 milligrams of elderberry when you're getting sick. I've seen marketed elderberries for 100 milligrams. So what is that going to do? So you take the elderberry 1900 milligrams when you start getting sick, take vitamin C, 6 to 8 grams for the first 48 hours. Go with the zinc also. Echinacea is also great in terms of fighting colds and flus. I think I would reserve it more for kids because elderberry, in my opinion, is a better supplement than echinacea for adults.
What are some of your favorite supplement brands, just so we can start to think about where we're going to buy these supplements?
So the one that I use regularly is Now. It's the Now brand. I've spoken to them. I've emailed them back and forth. These guys are very diligent. They do 19,000 tests a month on the raw materials they bring in. They actually led an initiative to help find some of the fraudulent supplements that were found on Amazon. The other one that I like is Gaia Herbs. Gaia Herbs, they have a program called Meet Your Herb. So you can put the ID number of that supplement that you're taking, and you can get the certificate of analysis of that supplement. Certificate of analysis is basically a report that would tell you what's in the supplement, what are the amounts of heavy metals in it, was it tested for adulterants, bacteria, etc. So you can get a good report on what you're taking.
I also really love two supplement brands. One is called Mega Foods and the other one is Wild Nutrition. And the reason I love these brands is because it's kind of farm to table or farm to supplement type brands, and it's based on organic regenerative agriculture farming. So, needless to say, they're also gluten-free, yeast-free, preservative-free, pesticide-free because they're organic, et cetera, soy-free. But I love that they're really focused on kind of using a supplement or manufacturing a supplement from food, from farming, not from chemicals. This is as least processed as you can find. And also, it's not just good for you, it's better for the planet because their farming practices are based on regenerative ag practices, which means that they really focus on regenerating the soil health. So that soil now is not only capturing more carbon, which is better for the planet, but it also is capturing more nutrition. So I love those two brands. I also, when I think about the more commercial brands, I look at Thorn and Pure Encapsulation. So I think these are also two quite reputable brands to look out for. And there are a few others on the market that I'm sure we can learn more about.
Yeah, so just to add one point, so if you don't know which brand to get, go on to Consumer Labs and you'd be able to see a list of the brands and if they've been vetted by Consumer Labs. I think you'd have to pay an annual subscription. But I mean, the reason why it's great, because let's say you want to try omega-3 fatty acids, you go onto the website, Consumer Labs, what they do, they would take 5 different brands off the shelf and they would test them for the potency that we're talking about. So if you're saying you have a gram of omega-3 fatty acids, Consumer Labs will test it and it will tell you what the dosage is. Consumer Labs will also test for heavy metals. So you'd be able to see how much is in there and they would provide recommendations. So I think that is a great resource, especially if you have a certain supplement in mind and you can't find the brands that we're recommending.
I personally love and use consumerlab.com. Part of my time being trained to be a health coach prior to graduating is we were introduced to Consumer Lab as a way to understand and get to know how to vet the supplement world. So I personally love it. I'm subscribed and they don't just look at supplement brands. They also look at some of my favorite tea brands to make sure that the matcha or the green tea that I'm consuming is, devoid of heavy metals or as potent as the box says it is. So I personally love it. And yes, you do have to subscribe, but it's not that much and it's a yearly free. Okay, let's talk about the big elephant in the room. Are we buying supplements off of Amazon?
My short answer is no, I would not. And the main reason that I would not is because they don't have climate control warehousing or storage for their supplements. So if you're buying supplements in the summer, you're buying omega-3 fatty acids in the summer. I mean, they could go rancid just sitting in the Amazon warehouse. During COVID, there was a lot of fraudulent activity going through Amazon in terms of third-party sellers. And this happens when the demand overshoots the supply. People were asking for zinc, for the elderberries, for the vitamin C's and D's of the world. Well, Amazon, they did take certain measures to try and stop that. So now every single supplement manufacturer on Amazon, they have to write a letter of guarantee stating that what's on the label is what they're actually selling. Now, I'm not sure how much this is going to do, but the other thing they did is they basically made these manufacturers supply or submit a certificate of analysis of their supplements from a certain list of labs that were only approved by Amazon. So third-party labs would test these supplements, and then that certificate of analysis should be provided to Amazon. Now, we don't know what Amazon is doing with this sort of information, but it's a step in the right direction. I would rather go to iHerb rather than Amazon to buy my supplements.
I'm the same as you. I don't trust Amazon when it comes to supplements. I've personally also heard horror stories when it comes to supplements. I've heard of individuals reselling supplements. So people like me and you reselling and kind of restocking the bottles with sketchy ingredients. So if you are going to Amazon and you are buying, maybe make sure that that brand that you're buying from, you go to their storefront. Like for example, if it's omega-3, my favorite brand for omega-3 is Nordic Naturals. So if that's what you're buying, make sure it's not from an individual, but you actually click and you go and it's the Nordic Natural storefront. That just means that you can probably trust this purchase more. But as Talal said, we don't know what kind of storage facility or environment or temperature they are keeping these supplements at. And especially for something like omega-3, it can go rancid. And it's just, I personally wouldn't trust. And I like iHerb as well. I also use Health, which is spelled with an F at the end. I will link below. And they have a lot of the brands that we spoke about and some of my favorite supplements tried and tested as well on that website.
In terms of fraudulent activities, I can share a personal story. Someone that I know was taking vitamin B12 and she broke out in this severe aggressive acne on her face. She didn't change her diet. There's no family history of acne that doesn't run in the family. She went to see a dermatologist, and the first thing he told her was, "Oh, are you taking any vitamin B12 supplements?" And there was a scandal about, I think it was in 2014, when the company called Purity First, they were selling these vitamin B supplements, and they didn't even know, but it was adulterated with androgenic hormones. So a lot of the women who were taking it, they were breaking out in acne, their voice was changing, and they would get mustaches. And this is quite scary. And it took the FDA 6 months to investigate this and eventually shut the manufacturing facility down. But yes, we do need to be wary about these sort of activities.
100%. And I'd love to ask you, what sort of ingredients should we look out for when choosing a supplement?
So the one that these days that I look out for vigilantly is titanium dioxide. Certainly, you do not want that on your supplement list of ingredients. Brominated oils or hydrogenated oils, brominated oils have been eventually banned because of their health risk, and hydrogenated oils maybe not, but I think it's on that same path. The problem is with this is that the FDA is always playing catch up. And, I would look to the European guidelines. You can always Google, is this ingredient banned in Europe or is it banned in the USA? And the FDA just started looking into, I think it's just about to ban titanium dioxide. I'm not really sure about this, but whereas in Europe, it's been banned for a while now.
Some ingredients I look out for that I try to avoid is carrageenan, which is a food additive that is meant to be safe. It's considered safe by the FDA, but it has also been linked to digestive issues. And so if you're having this food additive constantly in your diet, a little bit might not harm you, but it adds up over time. So you can mostly find carrageenan in like supplements, but also in foods like fruit yogurts. And I just say buy the yogurt and the fruit separately and just have it clean and don't have these preservatives in there. So it's just something to look out for. Another one is maltodextrin, which is a sweetener, and it actually has a higher glycemic index than table sugar. So again, a little bit might not be harmful, but sometimes it can be chemically produced. Sometimes it's produced from natural sources. But in general, I'd just rather have like a real sweetener in there, like an organic honey or maple syrup, or I would avoid maltodextrin altogether. Of course, any other artificial flavors, palm oil, sugar substitutes, or any other fake sugars like aspartame or a chemical sweetener is what I would look out for and I would totally avoid. It shouldn't be in supplement pills because it shouldn't be flavored. But if you're buying like green powders or you're buying collagens or you're buying functional mushroom blends, like these are the things that I would look out for in terms of like how it is trying to alter the flavor of the powder. What can we leave our listeners with if they'd like to learn more? Do you have any resources you'd like to share with them?
I could share some statistics comparing the supplement world to the pharmaceutical world so we could put everyone's mind at ease. From 2004 to 2013, there were a total of 15,430 serious adverse events that were reported from the dietary supplement world. There were 339 deaths and 4,000 hospitalizations. Now, 90% of those were discharged fine. To compare that to the pharmaceutical world, annually, there has been 4.5 million ambulatory adverse drug events. There has been 1.3 million ER visits. Adverse drug events is one of the main reasons why patients are hospitalized, and I personally see them quite often. As much as we're talking about fraudulent in the world of supplements, it's still quite safe. And when you compare it to the pharmaceutical world, I think we're on a different bucket. So in terms of resources, one, I have to profess that a lot of the data that I got is from the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. This is where I'm doing my fellowship. If you go onto their website, you can get a great body of information. You could also sign up with the National Center of Complementary and Integrative Health. You'll get great information and resources. There's a great documentary done by PBS that talks about the history of the supplement and the act that was passed in 1994 and the fraudulent activity that was happening or that is happening in the supplement world.
Talal, this was such a great conversation. Thank you so much for your insights and for your support in learning more about this world. Just before we close, can you share with people where they can find you?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ali. I learned quite a few things from you today as well, and I had such a good time talking about supplements. This is a world that I really enjoy these days, and I certainly want to pass on this knowledge to the consumer. I do consultations for patients who want to take supplements or patients who have chronic symptoms or diseases that they want to tackle it with supplements. If you're interested, just email me at talal.sharaiha@gmail.com and we can take it from there.
Okay, fantastic. I will link that below. You can find Talal's information and where to find him in the description. And Talal, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Please share with family and friends that you feel could benefit from this episode, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a rating and review to support the show. Check out the links below for more information about my guests and where to find them. And make sure you're following me on Instagram at wholesome_practice to learn more about what I do. I appreciate you being here, and see you on the next one. This podcast is for educational purposes only and should never replace the advice of your doctor or physician. Always consult a medical professional before making any changes or adding anything new to your diet, lifestyle, or medication protocol.